All right, guys, welcome back to Noob class. We're moving on now to early military action. So we're going to start off just by introducing you to the units that we use in this game. Then we're going to talk a little bit about sort of general strategy early in the game. And then also we're going to talk about a specific way that we like to attack in this game. So let's jump right into it. This particular video, we're going to go ahead and make our way through the basic units. So the first one is, of course, infantry. Infantry is it's the backbone of your army. It's your bread and butter. Towards the end of some of these big 500 player games, you'll have stacks of 3,000, 4,000 infantry, with all kinds of other stuff in there as well. But it is those big stacks late in the game that make a difference. And of course, it's moving around the small stacks early in the game correctly that help you to get that initial advantage. So you can see here the attack and defense are both 1.2. That's assuming full morale. Morale is something that goes down as your men have to fight. It's also something that goes down if they're in a territory with low morale. It's also something that goes down and when I say goes down, if they're in a territory, I mean at day change. When day change comes, if they're in a low morale territory, that will pull their morale down. If they're in an enemy territory when day changes, that will also pull their morale down. And that affects their combat effectiveness in battle, so that's something to keep in mind. Each guy has 1 hit point, so when it's getting attacked by something that deals, say, 6 damage, of course, it doesn't deal 6. It deals, some randomized version of that. But you can expect a couple guys to probably die. So the most important thing to know about infantry is you can't buy them. They spawn naturally. So as soon as you build your recruiting office, the infantry will begin to spawn naturally. So hurry up and do that. If you go ahead and pay the $5 a month to be whatever the elite squad is or whatever, then you can start with recruiting offices already in your initial territories. That's one of the perks of being on that team. I can't remember what it's called, commander's team or something. But it's worth it to me because you also get some additional commands. You can put buildings in the queue, which means you can, have a territory build buildings later, like after they finish whatever they're building now. So for me, it's worth it. But if you don't have that, you need to go ahead and build those recruiting offices immediately. First thing you do. So you can't ever buy infantry, right? You can't, produce them. But you can make them spawn faster. So barracks are the way to do that. I would say if you find yourself in a country that has a double wheat, and then maybe even, God bless you, if you've got a double fish, if you have a double wheat and a double fish, then you're going to want to build a bunch of barracks because barracks, they cost wheat to build, and then they have an upkeep of wheat as well. And so let's talk a little bit about the costs over here. So if you build a level 1 barracks, you'll build 50% faster. So for instance, if something, I'm always a little confused about 50% faster, right? Like how does that actually calculate? But 100% faster means double the speed, right? So that's one thing we do know. What's a little confusing there, of course, is when we're saying faster, we're saying that it reduces the time, right? So if it's 50% faster, I'm tempted to say that it reduces the time to like 75% of the original time, because 100% faster means twice as fast, which means you half the original time, right? That's literally, if it's going to be every 24 hours, 100% faster would be every 12 hours, right? You could build double the men. So that's a little confusing to me when we apply percentages to faster, which actually means a shorter amount of time. But anyway, it's not really worth thinking about because all you really have to know is that you build infantry faster. And in the long run, over the entire game, you are going to have more infantry in the game than your enemies do. And if you lose guys, and you're going to lose guys, you'll have troops to replace them. So let's talk about the cost. These are free. They just simply sign up, say every 1 day and 12 hours, depending on the province, depending on barracks you might have there. And then the upkeep for infantry is 20 grain and 5 oil for every one of them. So they eat a lot of grain. So keep it in mind, each one infantry is 1,000 infantry. So you're training up, 1,000, individual soldiers in that particular company. Okay, so next basic unit we're going to look at is the cavalry. Cavalry are attack units. They defend just like infantry, but they attack more than twice as powerfully at 2.6. So they're great to stiffen up infantry with if you include a group, if you include, one cavalry with a group of infantry. It just adds to that attack. If you can include 2 or 3, that's even better. Another good thing about them, of course, is they are 48 on land. Oh, that's something we didn't talk about back here with the infantry. It's worth talking about the speed. 36 on land, 21 at sea, 90 on rail. Their air defense is very poor, just 1/10 of 1 point against air. Okay, so 36 on land. Most of your marching is going to happen at 36 because infantry, again, are the backbone of your army. Most of your back and forth are going to be infantry moving around at 36 kilometers per hour. All right, this is slightly better here. It's about 33% better. You're going at 48 kilometers per hour on land, still 21 at sea and 90 on rail. Okay, we'll talk about rail and harbors a little bit later in this basic tutorial. These are great because they're mobile, they're quick, they're faster than infantry, significantly faster, 33% faster. And you only need to build a level 1 workshop, which I believe takes like 10 seconds to build, and a barracks. So once you've got a level 1 workshop and a barracks, you can build cavalry. So early in the game, you can have cavalry on the map. I highly recommend it. In fact, I recommend you go over and look at my Only Cavalry stack playlist. It's a game I played where all I could build were cavalry, no other units. I was not permitted to build any other units except cavalry. And I dominated that game. I absolutely won the game easily. So cavalry are underrated. They're early game. You can get them on the map early, and they're strong. Every cavalry is worth more than 2 infantry. And the thing is, you can force them onto the map. You can build them. You can't force infantry. They just generate at whatever speed they're going to generate at, but you can build these. So that's a helpful thing as well. Another thing to remember is that as you go to level 2 workshop, and then from level 2 workshop, you go on to level 1 factory, level 2 factory, level 3 factory, and finally level 4 factory, you will build cavalry faster. Now, again, because of that game I was just in, I happen to know that a level 4 factory built a cavalry in just 6 hours. So, by the end of that game, I had tons of level 4 factories with a barracks in there that were just churning out the cavalry every 6 hours is great. That's 4 per day that you could conceivably be building. And if you have 10 or 12 provinces doing that, well, you got a lot of horses on the map, folks. So the cost here is $6,000 silver, 1,000 grain, and 1,000 fish. So again, if you happen to start in one of those provinces with a double wheat and a double fish, and that's happened to me before, you need to think about cavalry. You can tell they're greedy with the grain and fish. They cost a lot, but man, they're strong. The upkeep is 20 grain and 10 fish per day. So each of those units will use 20 grain and 10 fish each and every day. All right, last of our units here, early game units that is the armored car. Now the armored car is even earlier than the cavalry because all you need is a workshop level 1. That's it. So workshop level 1 takes about 10 seconds to build, maybe 12, and then you can start building armored cars. Now the problem with armored cars is they cost 2,000 iron and 1,000 oil. So again, if you're lucky enough to start in a country that has double oil and double iron, then you need to start building some armored cars. Now they're opposite of the cavalry. They're defenders, so they defend like 2 infantry, and they attack like a regular infantry. So you wouldn't typically want to use these as part of an attack force. You'd rather keep them back where you're playing defensively because each armored car is worth 2 infantry in terms of defense. Now, here's another big thing. Air defense. Remember, infantry was 0.1, right? 1/10 of a point. This is 1.6 against air. That is very strong against air. So this early in the game, we don't have to worry about air. It's not even going to be part of our noob class at all. You'll get into air later, but it's certainly a great return on some early game units you could have. If you have 5 of these, naturally you'll have 8 against air, which is pretty darn good. Somebody attacks you, that you got some serious ability to shoot back. All right. The best thing about them, of course, is they're really fast. 72 on land. They're twice as fast as the infantry. They're the fastest land unit in the game. The only reason they're not the fastest unit is because once you get into planes are really fast. Okay, but 72, that's fantastic. These guys dart around. They are super fast. They go 21 at sea, because I assume they're all just riding on the same kind of slow boats, and 90 on rail, again, because they're all in boxcars going 90 kilometers per hour. So all 3 of our units do go 21 at sea and 90 on the rail, but they're very different when they're driving along roads. Infantry are 36, cavalry are 48, and armored cars here maxing out at 72 kilometers per hour. Okay, the same thing is true over here. If you continue to build that workshop to level 2, then factory level 1, 2, 3, 4, same thing. A level 4 factory can build an armored car in just 6 hours. So you can really churn out a lot of these units. Again, though, you really need to decide, if you've got a lot of food early in the game, if you've got a lot of wheat and a lot of fish, then you'll probably lean heavily over to the cavalry. And then if you have a lot of iron and oil, then you're set up for these armored cars and just play a real strong defensive game. All right, that's about it. We're going to move on to the next video after this, which will be some early military strategy, some stuff that you can just sort of start your game with. And we'll move on to that next. So thanks for checking in, guys. I'll see y'all next time. Adios, amigos.